The conference room at Naval Station Norfolk was colder than usual, though the temperature had nothing to do with the thermostat. Tension hung in the air like a storm cloud waiting to break. SEAL officers in crisp uniforms sat around the long mahogany table, their eyes flicking occasionally toward the lone figure standing at the head. Commander, petite but radiating an unshakable authority, carried herself like someone who had stared down danger so many times it no longer intimidated her. She adjusted her blazer, revealing the neatly pressed insignia of a Navy commander, and glanced at the files in front of her. Admiral, a towering figure with decades of service and a reputation for biting sarcasm, leaned back in his chair. His smirk was effortless, the kind that came from years of being the person in the room, or at least believing it. "Commander," he began, voice dripping with mockery, "I hope you don't mind me saying, but you seem a little out of your depth. This isn't exactly a beginner's briefing." A ripple of laughter traveled the room. SEAL officers, men accustomed to strict hierarchy and aggressive camaraderie, snickered, exchanging knowing glances. Lips curved in the faintest trace of a smile, though it did not reach her eyes. She had faced worse than smug admirals and sneering teams of elite soldiers. Afghanistan, Somalia, operations in the South China Sea. Each of them tested her, but none had shaken her core. She calmly set her folder on the table, deliberately slow, letting the room anticipate what was coming. Her voice cut through the murmurs like steel on stone. "Admiral," she said evenly, almost gently, "that's not my rank." Laughter died midair. Smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion. "I beg your pardon." His eyes narrowed, met his gaze evenly, her calm unwavering. "That's not my rank," she repeated. She slid the folder across the table with a soft thud, the seal catching the light in a subtle, almost ceremonial gleam. Every eye in the room turned, all curiosity suddenly focused. The room that had moments ago been filled with smug amusement now contained only sharp attention, curiosity, and unease. The SEAL officers shifted in their seats, their earlier amusement replaced by cautious interest. They were used to seeing rank as a straightforward hierarchy: lieutenant, commander, captain. Revelation broke the expected rhythm. "Fleet commander," she said finally, voice calm but deliberate. "U.S. Strategic Operations Command, effective as of this morning." For a moment, silence fell like a physical weight across the room. Jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He blinked, the words not quite registering at first. The envelope beside was sealed, official, and authoritative. The men who had laughed now exchanged glances, realizing they had underestimated her in ways that might haunt them later. Even the junior officers, unfamiliar with the subtle tensions of Washington and Norfolk, sensed something extraordinary unfolding. Did not pause for dramatic effect. She let the gravity of her statement fill the room naturally, with quiet confidence. "Admiral, you and your team now report directly to me for the duration of this mission," she added. Her eyes swept the table deliberately, meeting each officer's gaze. The message was clear. This was no longer a matter of rank they could debate. Every smirk, every chuckle, every condescending glance from before had evaporated in the presence of undeniable authority. His hand hovered near his pen, the familiar sense of control he always carried now slipping just slightly. I see," he muttered, his voice lower, cautious, nodded. "I know this is sudden, but I assure you we have critical matters to discuss. Lives, resources, and national security are at stake. There is no room for hesitation, no room for ego." The room shifted. Where moments ago there had been jest and arrogance, now there was focus. His calm presence, her silent command of attention, and the weight of her new authority transformed the space. She was not here to entertain doubts, she was here to lead. And everyone in that room, SEALs, admirals, and junior officers alike, sensed that today marked the beginning of something far larger than they could have anticipated. Fleet commander had arrived. The room was silent for longer than anyone expected. Admiral, a man accustomed to commanding entire fleets and issuing orders that were rarely questioned, now found himself frozen, staring at the folder had placed before him. The Pentagon's official seal gleamed under the fluorescent lights, confirming what none of them had anticipated. Fleet commander was real, and her authority was immediate and absolute. The laughter, the mockery, even the whispered jokes of the SEAL officers, all of it evaporated in an instant. His fingers drummed lightly on the polished mahogany table, a nervous habit he rarely exhibited. "Fleet Commander," he repeated, as if saying it aloud would make the concept tangible. "Effective this morning," nodded once, her expression serene but uncompromising. "Yes, Admiral, and as of now all operations in this sector fall under my command. That includes this team, your direct reports, and the Pacific Intercept mission." The SEAL officers shifted uneasily in their seats. They were among the most elite in the Navy, trained to follow orders without hesitation, yet uncertainty gripped them. None had seen this level of authority arrive quietly, calmly, without fanfare. The woman they had underestimated just hours ago had changed the room's entire dynamic with two simple words: "Fleet Commander." Inhaled slowly, attempting to regain control of the situation, but the reality settled over him like a cold tide. His reputation as a tactician, a man who knew every nuance of naval hierarchy, suddenly felt hollow. He had mocked her, tested her, and now he realized how profoundly he had misjudged her. I didn't realize," he murmured, but did not interrupt, did not offer reassurance. She allowed the weight of her authority to resonate. "Admiral," she said, her voice precise, "you are a valuable part of this mission and your expertise is critical. But understand this. Any hesitation, any questioning of chain of command at this stage will not be tolerated. We are operating on a timeline measured in minutes. Lives, national security, and critical technology are on the line. We succeed or fail together, and I expect full cooperation." The SEALs exchanged glances. Respect was dawning in their eyes, tempered by a flicker of disbelief. None of them had ever encountered someone who commanded authority simply by existing in the room. His calm, unwavering demeanor projected competence and strength more effectively than any medal, uniform, or long-winded speech could. Her presence demanded attention. It left no room for doubt. Finally nodded, swallowing his pride. "Understood, Fleet Commander," he said, his tone clipped but sincere. The word felt strange on his tongue, unfamiliar, yet he knew it was true. Gaze swept across the table once more, confirming that every officer had registered the chain of command clearly. "Good," she replied. "We proceed immediately with mission planning. Every decision you make must align with the operation's objectives. Deviations will not be tolerated." A junior officer, still recovering from the shock, cleared his throat. "Fleet Commander, what's our first step?" Eyes softened slightly but remained steely. "We gather intelligence, confirm convoy movements, and establish intercept points. Timing is critical. Any mistake could escalate this into an international incident. I expect complete transparency in communication, and I expect everyone here to operate as though the lives of hundreds depend on your actions, because they do." The room, once filled with casual arrogance, now brimmed with focused energy. The SEAL officers straightened, recalibrating their expectations and mindset. Though still unsettled, followed's lead. The stark reality had set in. This was no ordinary mission briefing, and was no ordinary commander. She didn't need to prove herself. Her authority, her skill, and her decisions would speak louder than any words ever could. By the end of the hour, the room had transformed. Laughter, mockery, and doubt were replaced with disciplined focus. His calm, commanding presence had carved order out of chaos, and the men who had doubted her realized, perhaps for the first time, that the woman they had underestimated was the single most powerful authority in the room. Fleet Commander had arrived, and nothing, or no one, would stand in her way. The briefing room smelled faintly of coffee and anticipation. Stood at the head of the table, projecting authority without raising her voice. The SEAL officers, still reeling from the revelation of her rank, leaned forward in unison, their eyes fixed on her. Every detail, every movement, every nuance of her demeanor signaled control. The projection screen flickered on, revealing satellite imagery, convoy routes, and timestamps that seemed impossibly precise. This was no routine mission briefing. It was the blueprint of a high-stakes operation that could alter the balance of power in the Pacific. His finger traced the paths of 3 rogue ships currently unaccounted for in international waters. Intel indicates these vessels are transporting stolen Navy technology, she explained, voice steady, calm, and unwavering. They have evaded standard detection methods and are operating under encrypted communications. If they reach neutral waters, recovery becomes exponentially more difficult. Our objective is to intercept, secure the technology, and neutralize threats without civilian casualties or international escalation. Her gaze swept the room, locking with each officer's. No room for hesitation, no room for doubt. Admiral, still absorbing the magnitude of the situation, leaned forward in his chair. "And the team I've assembled," he asked cautiously, didn't flinch. "I've reviewed every record of this unit. Your expertise is exceptional. You are the best trained, fastest, and most adaptable in the Navy. But skill alone won't guarantee success. Discipline, coordination, and absolute trust in command are what will get us through." Her eyes briefly met his, sharp and knowing. Realize this was no reprimand or critique. This was preparation for survival. The room filled with quiet determination. SEAL Team 6, known for their precision and lethal efficiency, exchanged glances that betrayed both admiration and lingering disbelief. The woman who had arrived quietly understated had now become the fulcrum of their mission. "We operate in 3-hour windows," continued. "Weather, ocean currents, and satellite visibility create narrow intercept opportunities. We have one chance to act. Any deviation risks losing the convoy or alerting hostile forces. Timing is critical." A young lieutenant raised a hand, hesitating. "Fleet Commander, the convoy could split or change direction. How will we track them in real time?" Didn't hesitate. "We will deploy drones on encrypted channels. I've coordinated with our signals intelligence units to provide continuous updates. I will personally oversee the feed. Any anomalies are addressed instantly. There will be no delay, no guessing." Her calm precision reassured them, erasing the remnants of doubt lingering in the room. Normally the one giving orders, now sat quietly, listening and learning. He noted the precision of her planning, contingency strategies mapped for every conceivable deviation, evacuation protocols prepared for every possible casualty scenario, communication redundancies layered like a fortress. The woman he had underestimated hours ago had now become the blueprint for operational excellence. Even his seasoned experience paled beside her meticulous preparation. Shifted the display to highlight potential engagement zones, paths of evasion, and risk assessments for each SEAL insertion. "We move with speed but not recklessly. Aggression without calculation is suicide," she said. Her voice carried authority that could not be ignored. Every SEAL understood the stakes. Every officer realized the gravity. This was not merely a mission. It was a test of execution under pressure, with lives, technology, and national security hanging by a thread. By the end of the briefing, the room had transformed. Skepticism had been replaced with focused intensity. The SEAL officers were no longer reacting to rank. They were responding to command. Every eye tracked her movements. Every mind processed her instructions. Admiral, for the first time, felt the weight of following rather than leading. Fleet Commander had claimed not just authority, but absolute control. The mission was imminent, and the men and women in the room knew they would follow her into the storm, and survive it, because she would lead them there. Night had fallen over the Norfolk harbor, but the deck of the USS Olympia burned with activity. Engines roared, steel groaned, and the salt spray of the Atlantic stung everyone's eyes. Stood at the bridge, headset snug over her ears, scanning monitors, radar feeds, and maps with an intensity that seemed to pull the storm itself into focus. Her hair, damp from condensation, clung to her collar, but she didn't notice. She was already 3 steps ahead of every threat, every possibility, every contingency. The SEALs had been briefed, but seeing her command in real time was something else entirely. Admiral approached cautiously, still struggling with the unfamiliar weight of following orders rather than issuing them. "Fleet Commander," he said, almost whispering the title like it burned in his mouth. "I have to admit I didn't expect." Eyes flicked toward him briefly. "You didn't expect me to lead efficiently," she interrupted softly, her tone calm, measured, and sharp. swallowed, words failing. She didn't wait for him to recover. This isn't about expectation. This is about execution. Every second counts. On the bridge, the crew moved like a single organism. Engines thrummed, radar screens glowed, and the hum of technology blended with the pounding of rain on steel. Fingers danced over the controls, issuing orders with quiet precision. "Adjust heading 12 degrees starboard," she instructed, voice unwavering. "Weapons teams prepare for intercept. Drones confirm feed. Communication secure all channels." Each command was a thread in a tightly woven web, each action measured, deliberate. Even the veteran officers, men who had survived dozens of high-risk missions, felt their nerves settle under the weight of her presence. The radar flickered. 3 unidentified blips cut through the Pacific darkness, moving faster than expected. "They're attempting to evade detection under cloud cover," noted, her gaze unwavering. "We maintain course. Drone feeds are updated in real time. SEAL teams stand by for insertion on my mark." She didn't shout, didn't panic. Her calmness projected an aura of control that made chaos seem manageable. Watched, amazed. The woman he had mocked hours ago was orchestrating precision and composure like a master conductor, guiding a symphony. Minutes stretched, the tension mounting. The blips moved closer, their speed and trajectory erratic but trackable. Voice cut through the storm. "Target locked. Intercept course confirmed. All units synchronize watches. Timing is critical. Any deviation, any hesitation risks failure." Her clarity, her authority, transformed fear into purpose. Each officer, each enlisted crew member knew the plan. They trusted her implicitly, even if only minutes earlier they had doubted her entirely. The first helicopters lifted, blades slicing through wind and rain, coordinated every movement from the bridge, issuing rapid commands with calm authority. SEALs secured harnesses, drones streamed live data, and the USS Olympia adjusted speed, slicing through waves with surgical precision. Lightning illuminated the deck, revealing faces tense with focus. "Keep comms open. No second guessing. We act as one unit," she said, realized that his doubts were irrelevant. This woman did not simply command by rank, she commanded by mastery. As the convoy came into radar range, remained unflinching. Every calculation, every timing adjustment, every trajectory had been anticipated. The storm, the rogue vessels, the complexity of the mission, all of it fell under her control. For the first time in decades, felt the raw power of leadership untempered by ego, strategy distilled into action. Fleet commander had turned a night of chaos into a coordinated, precise operation. She finally allowed herself a small nod, acknowledging the crew's readiness. "Launch in 3, 2, 1. Her voice was calm, yet every officer and SEAL knew it carried the force of inevitability. The operation had begun. Lives, technology, and national security depended on her decisions, and she would not fail. Not now, not ever. The Pacific had turned violent. Waves towered over the deck of the USS Olympia, crashing with relentless fury. Rain lashed like needles against steel, and lightning split the sky in jagged bursts. The wind howled through the rigging, tugging at every strap and rope, shaking the crew to their core. Visibility was near zero. Amid the chaos, stood steady, headset on, voice calm but precise. The storm was a living adversary, and she treated it like any mission threat. Analyze, anticipate, act. Fear had no place here, discipline did. One SEAL officer shouted over the roar of the storm. "Fleet commander, we've lost visual on the convoy," didn't flinch. Her eyes scanned the radar feeds, drones, and encrypted satellite transmissions. "They're using the cloud cover to mask heat signatures," she said evenly. Her fingers moved swiftly across the interface, adjusting drone angles and coordinating live feed from multiple satellites. "Secondary feed active. Track through infrared overlay. I've got them. Maintain course. Trust your instruments." The SEALs, drenched and tense, executed her orders with precision. Flashlights danced across rain-slicked decks, cables were secured, and each team moved like clockwork. Calm authority was the only anchor in the chaos. Even the storm seemed to bend around her, at least in the minds of those who trusted her implicitly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't panic. She simply directed, and the crew obeyed as if instinctively. Lightning illuminated 3 faint blips on the radar. The rogue convoy was using every advantage to evade detection, studied the trajectory, noting every subtle change. "They're trying to split formation," she observed, voice steady. "We anticipate encounter, drone feeds updated, every insertion point synchronized. SEALs maintain readiness for immediate deployment. Timing is critical. One mistake and the mission is compromised." The officers exchanged glances. They had trained for storms, ambushes, and combat, but nothing had prepared them for this level of calm precision in the face of chaos. Thunder rattled across the hull. Helicopter units confirm lift coordinates. Weapons teams secure staging points. Drones provide continuous real-time overlay. "I want every sector monitored." Her commands were precise, short, and absolute. Drenched and drenched again, leaned against the bulkhead. He had survived decades of naval operations, but the clarity of decision-making made him feel inexperienced. He realized the mission's success rested entirely on her composure and judgment. Minutes passed like hours. The storm's fury did not abate, yet the USS Olympia surged forward, coordinated every movement, anticipating both the convoy's evasive maneuvers and the unpredictable wrath of nature. The crew followed with unwavering focus. Communication was perfect, execution flawless, each action carefully synchronized with her command. Even in the tempest, every movement felt rehearsed, yet every step required split-second adjustments that only could orchestrate. Then a loud crack of thunder coincided with the first visual confirmation of the convoy. The 3 rogue ships, cloaked beneath storm clouds, moved predictably enough for the prepared SEAL teams to act. His voice cut through the wind. "Target lock confirmed. Execute insertion protocol. Move now." As the SEALs prepared for deployment, stayed on the bridge, monitoring every angle. Her calmness never wavered, her focus never faltered. The storm raged, but the chaos had a rhythm, and she was the conductor. Each crew member knew that survival depended not on luck, but on trust. Trust in the fleet commander who had turned fear into purpose, chaos into strategy, and a violent storm into a battlefield they could control. By the time the first insertion teams moved toward the convoy, had already anticipated 3 contingencies and was ready with solutions for all. The SEALs, once skeptical, now followed her every command without question. Lives, missions, and national security all depended on her decisions, and Fleet Commander would not let them fail. The storm raged, but the USS Olympia surged forward with unshakable precision. His voice, calm yet commanding, cut through the roar of wind and rain over the bridge comms. "All units, positions locked. Visual confirmation on 3 vessels. This is it. Execute with precision. Timing is critical." Helicopters lifted from the deck, blades tearing through sheets of rain, carrying SEAL teams ready for insertion. Every movement was synchronized, rehearsed in their minds but never executed under such violent conditions. Yet under's command, the chaos felt orchestrated, like a deadly dance with nature itself as the percussion. "Team Alpha deploy on the first vessel. Team Bravo cover flanks and prepare for secondary engagement," she continued, issuing orders with surgical clarity. Her headset crackled as drones relayed live footage. Each screen was alive with movement, men in black tactical gear swinging from ropes, flashes of gunfire, the chaos of boarding vessels under violent weather. Remained on the bridge, her eyes scanning every feed, processing multiple streams of data simultaneously. Her calmness anchored the operation. Panic had no foothold here, only action mattered. The first insertion team hit the deck of the rogue vessel, detonated, momentarily blinding any hostile personnel on board. SEALs moved like shadows, weapons precise, coordinated, lethal. Voice guided every step. "Hold position, clear the stern, confirm hostile neutralization." Seconds stretched, hearts pounded, yet her calmness never wavered. The operation depended on split-second decisions and made them with flawless timing. Every command minimized risk while maximizing efficiency. The second vessel began to maneuver aggressively, attempting to escape. adjusted the trajectory of the USS Olympia and recalibrated drone positions. Secondary engagement initiated. Weapons teams ready. Maintain suppressive fire if necessary. Do not engage civilians. Her instructions were absolute. Watching the operation unfold, felt a rare surge of awe. The woman he had mocked now orchestrated a multi-level strike with perfect composure. The Storm and Rogue vessels posed extraordinary challenges, yet its command turned chaos into precise, controlled action. Explosions erupted as the SEALs secured their objectives. One team on the second ship reported, "Target neutralized. No casualties." His voice was calm. "Confirm secondary detonation secured. Pull back all personnel. Maintain perimeter." Even as waves crashed violently against the hull, the team executed flawlessly, following her every instruction. The final ship attempted evasive maneuvers but anticipated it, adjusting drone positions and helicopter flight paths in real time. Every movement was a prediction made into action. The strike lasted mere minutes but felt eternal. The SEALs cleared all vessels, securing stolen Navy technology and neutralizing threats, coordinated extractions with absolute precision, guiding helicopters through the storm with the ease of someone who had memorized every possible scenario. She remained the calm center, unshaken, a lighthouse amid chaos. Drenched and exhausted, could only nod, realizing fully the weight of true leadership. When the last call came through, all hostile forces neutralized, convoy secured, allowed herself a small exhale. Her focus did not waver. She scanned the deck, ensuring every man and woman returned safely. Victory was tactical, precise, controlled. She had turned what could have been catastrophic into a seamless operation, saving countless lives and recovering critical technology. For the first time, the SEALs saw the woman they had doubted as a true master of strategy, timing, and leadership. Fleet Commander had not only led an impossible mission in the middle of a storm, but had done so with calm, unshakable authority. The storm still raged, but the threat was neutralized, and respect, earned through action, not rank, was absolute. Had proven that in moments of life and death, calm decisiveness was the difference between survival and disaster. Dawn broke over the Pacific, painting the storm-tossed waters with pale orange light. The USS Olympia had weathered the night's chaos, and the rogue convoy lay neutralized under the careful oversight of Fleet Commander. The SEAL teams were exhausted but alive, huddled on the decks as helicopters returned, hauling their equipment and confirming all objectives had been met. Moved quietly among them, checking each officer and enlisted member for injuries, ensuring no one was overlooked. She did not speak of accolades or heroism. Her focus was on the men and women who had followed her into a violent storm and survived. Admiral approached, soaked and fatigued, his expression stripped of smugness and replaced with grudging respect. He had witnessed firsthand the precision, calm, and authority with which had executed the mission. Every order had been measured, every action anticipated, every contingency covered. "Fleet Commander," he began, voice low, almost reverent, "I misjudged you. I never expected that level of control, of foresight." Looked at him steadily. "And yet, Admiral," she replied softly, "you were eager to mock before understanding. Consider this a lesson in humility, not hubris." The SEALs, who had once smirked at her presence, now stood at attention, their earlier doubts replaced by unwavering respect. They approached her quietly, acknowledging her leadership with subtle nods, words of thanks, and firm handshakes. One of the younger officers, still catching his breath, finally spoke. "Fleet Commander, without your orders we wouldn't have made it. You guided us through a storm I've never seen before." Nodded, a brief smile touching her lips. "You executed flawlessly. I merely ensured we all survived to complete the mission." The captured convoy, now secured and catalogued, represented not only recovered technology but a triumph of coordination, discipline, and calm decisiveness. Oversaw the secure transfer of equipment and detainees with meticulous care, ensuring accountability at every stage. Her presence turned chaos into structure, and structure into survival. Even in the aftermath, her authority radiated effortlessly, commanding respect without need for reinforcement or ego. followed her across the wet deck, the waves lashing at them both, and finally spoke again. "I've spent decades leading missions, Fleet Commander. I've seen operations fall apart because of poor judgment, miscommunication, or hesitation. Yet tonight I watched a woman, one I underestimated, coordinate a flawless strike under conditions I'd call impossible." Paused briefly, scanning the horizon, where faint sunlight met the receding storm clouds. "Decisions made in fear are rarely correct," she said. "Calm, informed, and decisive action saves lives." The SEALs began packing equipment and preparing for the return journey. Their usual banter was muted, replaced with a reflective silence. They had learned something more valuable than mission strategy. They had witnessed true leadership under pressure. Calm decisiveness had inspired confidence not through fear or intimidation, but through skill and unwavering presence. They no longer viewed her as just a commander. She had become a mentor, a model of authority earned through action rather than title alone. As the USS Olympia turned course for Norfolk, the sky cleared, revealing the first bright rays of morning. Stood on the bridge, headset removed, surveying her team. She did not celebrate. There was no applause, no headlines in her mind, only the satisfaction of a mission completed, lives preserved, and trust earned. Standing beside her, finally allowed himself a small, genuine smile. The woman he had mocked had reshaped his understanding of leadership in hours. Fleet Commander had done more than command a mission. She had changed the room, changed the officers, and changed the perception of what it meant to lead. Respect had been earned, skepticism had been shattered, and the aftermath of the storm left no doubt. Was a fleet commander whose authority extended far beyond rank. Weeks later, Washington, D.C., shimmered with the crisp chill of early morning as Fleet Commander stood in the briefing hall of the Joint Chiefs. Her posture was impeccable, her expression calm, the same quiet authority that had guided the USS Olympia and SEAL teams through the storm now commanding attention in a room filled with the nation's top military leaders. Behind her, classified reports of the Pacific mission were displayed on screens, detailing every movement, every calculation, every decision she had made. This wasn't about accolades or headlines, yet her presence alone radiated the quiet gravity of achievement. The Joint Chiefs, seasoned veterans of countless operations, leaned forward as presented the after-action analysis. The operation had been labeled exemplary under fire, an acknowledgement of flawless execution under extreme conditions. Her briefing was meticulous, covering timelines, trajectories, contingencies, risk mitigation, and personnel accountability. Every question was answered with clarity, every hypothetical scenario addressed with precision. Even the most skeptical officers were compelled to acknowledge her strategic foresight. It was not simply the outcome of the mission that impressed them. It was the calm authority with which she had orchestrated the impossible. Reporters, kept at a secure distance, were already buzzing with fragments of the story. "Female Fleet Commander leads historic Pacific operation," one headline teased. Another noted, "Navy technology secured, lives saved, rogue convoy neutralized." Ignored the media attention. She had no desire to bask in glory. Her focus was on results, on accountability, and on ensuring the men and women under her command had the support they needed to return home safely. Leadership, she understood, was about responsibility, not recognition. Later, when pressed by a reporter, gave a response that would become legendary. "Rank doesn't make a leader," she said evenly. "Actions do. Decisions under pressure, the ability to anticipate outcomes, and the willingness to put others first. That is what leadership is. Anyone can wear a title, but few can carry the responsibility it represents." The words rippled through military circles, studied in classrooms, and cited in leadership seminars. Her mission had not only succeeded operationally, but had also redefined the standard of command. At naval academies across the country, cadets pored over the mission debrief, analyzing strategic planning, her real-time decision-making, and her calm under pressure. SEAL briefings adopted her protocols for storm navigation, coordination in adverse weather, and rapid insertion strategy. Her presence became a case study, not for bravado, not for rank, but for how a leader acts when the stakes are highest. His name became synonymous with courage, precision, and unwavering authority. Back aboard the USS Olympia, the storm long past, walked the deck at dawn, checking her crew, sharing quiet words of acknowledgement. There was no ceremony, no parade, just respect earned quietly. Now fully reconciled with his previous misjudgment, stood beside her, nodding with genuine admiration. "I underestimated you," he admitted once more. The expression remained serene. "You misjudged what leadership looks like," she said softly. "It's not about ego. It's about action, foresight, and taking responsibility for everyone under your command." Her legacy extended beyond the mission. Across the Navy, her story inspired a new generation of officers and enlisted personnel to lead with courage and clarity. In briefing rooms, in classrooms, and on decks across the world, the words "Fleet Commander" carried weight not because of rank, but because of actions that saved lives, recovered vital assets, and proved that leadership is measured in decisions made under fire. By the end of the day, returned to her quarters, exhausted but composed. The storm she had commanded through had passed, leaving calm waters and a trail of respect in its wake. She allowed herself a quiet moment of reflection, knowing that the real triumph was not in accolades, media recognition, or headlines, but in the lives saved, the lessons taught, and the enduring proof that true leadership is forged in action, not title. Fleet Commander had arrived, and the Navy and the nation would remember her for generations.